The 911 operator thought it was just another emergency call. A frightened woman whispered only 6 words before the line suddenly went silent. "Please help. They know I'm here." Minutes later, police arrived expecting to find a simple domestic disturbance. Instead, they uncovered the first clue to a secret that had remained hidden for nearly 20 years. And that secret would change everything. Sarah Mitchell had lived in the quiet town of Cedar Ridge, Ohio for almost 10 years. She worked as a nurse, rarely caused trouble, and was known as someone who always helped others. On a cold Thursday evening, Sarah made a call to 911. The dispatcher answered immediately. Sarah sounded terrified. She whispered that someone was watching her house. Before the dispatcher could gather more information, the call disconnected. Attempts to call back went unanswered. Following emergency protocol, officers were sent to her address. When police arrived, they expected to find a frightened homeowner or perhaps a technical issue. Instead, they found Sarah's front door partially open. The house appeared empty. No signs of forced entry, no signs of a struggle, no signs of Sarah. Her car remained parked outside. Her purse sat on the kitchen counter. Her phone was discovered on the living room floor. It looked as if she had simply vanished. Detectives launched an immediate missing person investigation. Friends and neighbors were questioned. Everyone described Sarah the same way: responsible, reliable, predictable. She wasn't the type of person who would disappear voluntarily. The mystery deepened when investigators examined Sarah's phone records. Hours before the 911 call, she had contacted a private investigator named Daniel Ross. Police interviewed Ross the following morning. He admitted Sarah had hired him several weeks earlier, but when detectives asked why, Ross became nervous. He explained that Sarah believed someone had been following her. At first, he assumed it was paranoia. Then, strange things started happening. Sarah received anonymous letters. Someone repeatedly appeared near her workplace. Unknown vehicles parked outside her home late at night. Ross conducted surveillance but never managed to identify the person. However, he did discover something unusual. Sarah wasn't the only target. Several other residents in nearby towns had reported nearly identical experiences over the past decade. Most incidents had never been connected. Some victims moved away. Others stopped reporting the activity. A few disappeared entirely. Detectives suddenly realized Sarah's case might be part of something much larger. Investigators began reviewing old reports. Patterns emerged. Victims ranged in age and background, yet all shared one strange connection. Years earlier, every single person had worked for the same local manufacturing company, a company that no longer existed. The factory had shut down almost 20 years before. Its records had largely disappeared. Most former employees had scattered across the country. Detectives tracked down retired workers. Many refused to talk. Some seemed genuinely frightened. One former supervisor ended the interview abruptly after hearing Sarah's name. Another claimed he knew nothing before hanging up. The reactions only increased suspicion. Meanwhile, forensic technicians searched Sarah's home. Inside a spare bedroom closet, they discovered a hidden compartment. The compartment contained boxes of documents, old photographs, employee records, financial statements, newspaper clippings, and handwritten notes. Sarah had clearly been conducting her own investigation. The notes suggested she believed the factory had been involved in criminal activity before its closure. More importantly, she believed someone was actively preventing former employees from speaking about it. Detectives examined hundreds of pages. Many documents referenced an accident that supposedly occurred shortly before the company shut down. Official records described it as an industrial equipment failure. 3 workers reportedly died. The case was closed quickly. No criminal charges were filed. But Sarah's notes suggested a completely different story. According to her research, the deaths may not have been accidental at all. One handwritten note stood out. It was written only days before she vanished. The note read, "They lied about what happened. Someone survived." Detectives immediately focused on that statement. Who survived? Why had nobody mentioned it? And what did it have to do with Sarah's disappearance? Investigators searched historical archives. Most information regarding the accident had vanished. Records were incomplete. Photographs were missing. Witness statements were unavailable. It was almost as if someone had deliberately erased the past. Then, an unexpected breakthrough arrived. A retired firefighter contacted police after seeing news coverage about Sarah. He remembered responding to the factory incident years earlier. His memory of that day differed dramatically from official reports. According to him, 4 people had been found inside the damaged section of the factory. Not 3. He clearly remembered because all 4 were transported away. When detectives asked why official documents listed only 3 victims, the firefighter had no explanation. But he was certain of what he saw. 4 people, not 3. That revelation changed the investigation. If a 4th person existed, their identity had somehow been removed from every official record. Police began searching for evidence of the missing individual. The deeper they looked, the stranger the case became, because every path they followed led to dead ends. Missing files, destroyed records, uncooperative witnesses, anonymous threats. It was almost as if an invisible force had spent 2 decades hiding the truth. And now, Sarah Mitchell had disappeared while trying to uncover it. Then detectives received a package with no return address. Inside was a single photograph. The picture showed 4 workers standing together inside the factory just weeks before the fatal incident. 3 faces matched known victims. The 4th face matched no official record. Written on the back were 5 chilling words. Find him before they do. The mystery had just begun. The photograph changed everything. For weeks, investigators had been chasing fragments of a story that seemed impossible to verify. Now they had proof. The 4th worker was real. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to erase him from history, and someone else desperately wanted police to find him. Detectives immediately began analyzing the photograph. The 3 identified workers were the officially recognized victims from the factory accident nearly 20 years earlier. But the 4th man remained a mystery. No name, no employee file, no government record connected him to the factory. It was as if he had never existed. Yet there he was, standing beside the others, smiling directly at the camera. The investigation shifted into high gear. Police expanded their search across old archives, newspaper databases, and payroll records. Days passed without progress. Then, Detective Ryan Carter noticed something unusual. A damaged payroll ledger contained a partially erased entry. Most of the information was unreadable. Only a few letters remained visible. Ha! The surname appeared to begin with Har. It wasn't much, but it was enough to start. Investigators cross-referenced every former employee whose last name matched those letters. One name surfaced repeatedly: Michael Harper. Harper worked briefly at the factory before disappearing shortly after the accident. Even stranger, there was no death certificate, no employment history after the incident. Nothing. He seemed to vanish. Now, they needed to find him. Meanwhile, Sarah Mitchell remained missing. Weeks had passed since her 911 call. Family members grew desperate. News coverage spread across neighboring states. Tips flooded into police departments. Then, a truck driver reported something. He claimed he had picked up a hitchhiker who appeared nervous and constantly looked back. After seeing an image of Michael Harper, he was convinced they were the same person. The sighting placed Harper in rural Pennsylvania. Eventually, they located an abandoned cabin deep inside a heavily wooded area. The property had no utilities and no registered owner. Inside, detectives discovered canned food, bottled water, and medical supplies. Someone had been living there recently. Then investigators found a locked metal box hidden beneath loose floorboards. Inside were dozens of documents and photographs. Among the papers was something even more shocking: a picture of Sarah Mitchell, taken without her knowledge as she left work. Written beneath the image were 2 words: too close. Detectives now knew her disappearance was connected to the factory. A fingerprint recovered from the cabin matched a man living under a different identity. Michael Harper had finally been found. At first, Harper refused to speak. He appeared terrified, repeatedly asking whether anyone knew he was there. He claimed the factory explosion had been intentionally staged. The goal was to silence workers who found evidence of an illegal operation. 3 workers died. Harper survived, but when he tried to tell the truth, he received threats. Evidence vanished. Witnesses changed stories. Harper realized powerful people were involved, so he disappeared. For nearly 20 years, he lived under false identities. Months earlier, Sarah Mitchell managed to contact him. She wanted answers. Eventually, he shared portions of what he knew. Then she stopped communicating. Harper assumed she had given up. Now he realized she had vanished. Harper identified one name that stood out: Richard Lawson, a former executive who had overseen operations at the factory. A security video showed Sarah Mitchell entering a parking garage 3 days before she disappeared. She was walking beside Richard Lawson. But before officers could act, Michael Harper disappeared again. He vanished from protective custody during a scheduled transfer. Investigators received an anonymous text message. Attached was a photograph of Harper in a dark room. "You should have stopped digging." At the bottom of the message was another sentence that made every detective freeze. "Sarah is still alive." The message changed the entire investigation. For months, detectives had treated Sarah Mitchell's disappearance as a possible homicide. Now there was reason to believe she was still alive. The anonymous photograph showed Michael Harper sitting in what appeared to be a small room. There were no visible windows, no identifying features, but one detail stood out. Harper wasn't injured, he wasn't restrained. Instead, he looked exhausted and terrified. Investigators immediately began analyzing the image. Every object in the room was examined, every shadow, every reflection, every pixel. Forensic specialists eventually discovered a faint company logo reflected in a metal cabinet behind Harper. The logo belonged to a warehouse corporation operating facilities across 3 states. Police narrowed the possibilities to 6 locations. Meanwhile, detectives intensified their investigation into Richard Lawson. The more they uncovered, the more alarming the picture became. Financial records revealed decades of hidden transactions, shell companies, fake contracts, offshore accounts. Several former associates admitted Lawson maintained unusual influence over local officials during the years following the factory explosion. Still, investigators lacked enough evidence to make an arrest. Then, an unexpected witness came forward. A retired accountant contacted authorities. According to her, the factory had been used to conceal a massive financial fraud operation. The explosion was designed to destroy evidence, but one witness survived: Michael Harper. Everything suddenly fit together: the threats, the missing records, the cover-up. A multi-agency task force launched simultaneous raids. One warehouse generated immediate concern. Inside, officers discovered signs of recent occupation. Then they found a locked office hidden behind a false wall. The room contained boxes filled with documents dating back decades. The blueprint revealed a concealed underground section. After forcing a steel door, they entered a narrow corridor. Inside, they found Michael Harper. Harper provided another lead: a lake property. Detectives moved quickly. The property appeared abandoned, but fresh tire tracks led toward the building. Officers rushed downstairs. At the far end of the basement sat a locked room. Sarah Mitchell was inside, alive, exhausted, but alive. Sarah had secretly protected her findings. Copies of documents had been distributed to trusted contacts before her disappearance. Arrests followed quickly. Richard Lawson was taken into custody along with multiple associates connected to the decades-old conspiracy. The secret had finally been exposed. It all began with one terrified 911 call that many people would have forgotten. If you enjoyed this mystery, like and subscribe for more stories. Comment below. What would you have done if you were Sarah Mitchell?